Hi there, everyone. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about relationships, something that affects all of us. I'm going to give you a few ideas to get you started, and I'll cover more of this topic next time because obviously it's a huge area to cover. The Silver Cloud program has a section on communication and relationships that you may find really useful because it's a really good section in Silver Cloud. It focuses on the way you communicate and how you relate to other people. So it helps you find new ways of making relationships satisfying. So it's really good in the Silver Cloud program. It also looks at communication styles and how sometimes our styles clash with the styles of other people. It also looks at assertiveness and how this can improve our relationships. I've taken something from the program I'll just quickly read out to you now, and I've summarized it. And it says that the 8 top tips that they recommend that you consider when you're looking at relationships is, the first one is never take other people for granted. The second one, quality relationships take time and attention to maintain. The third one, if possible, make regular good quality time to spend with the important people in your life. Learn to set boundaries and to communicate what you need from a relationship. Be as polite and respectful as with others that are less close to you, but just be polite and respectful with as many relationships across the board as you can. And another big one, don't displace anger from other areas of your life onto friends and family. Be ready to face difficulties as they arise in your relationships, and don't pin your own self-worth on being part of a couple or a member of a working family. That's a really important one, that is, because many people come into therapy because their relationships are suffering, and so they are suffering. It's hard for our relationships to thrive when we are carrying baggage, when we're hurt, and we bring all of that into our relationships. I think it's really important to understand and look at your own feelings before we start blaming the other people in our relationship for our relationship difficulties. So it's always good to look at your own stuff. And the first thing I'd like to start with today is I'd really like you to try an exercise to look at how you feel about your own relationships. Now, I say to you sometimes to have a pen and paper handy, but Becca's now going to put up a slide on the screen for us, and it's going to show you the exercise. And this exercise may help you understand a few things about the relationships in your lives a little bit more clearer, and it'll give you a bit of clarity. And the first thing it asks you to do in this exercise is to list the major relationships in your life. Now, if you haven't currently got many relationships, you may be living on your own, your partner may, you may no longer be with your partner, or you may not have children, or they may have left. You can talk about relationships that have gone, so previous relationships, or you can use current relationships, okay? So the first thing we want you to do is to list all the major relationships in your life that you've either had or you're currently having, and you put them in the first box. So you just name the people. And then you do the tasks that I'm going to ask you to do for each person, okay? So say the first person may be a parent, a partner, a child. So you put the person's name, and then in the box underneath, I want you to try and work out, what do you learn from being in a relationship with that person? So what do you feel about being in that relationship, and what does it teach you? And again, like I said before, if it was another relationship you've had in the past, what did you learn about that relationship? So maybe it'd be better that you print one of these out, or write things down when we finish the broadcast, and then you can have a go through yourselves. But I wanted to take you through the exercise now so you've got an idea of what we're talking about. So that was the first one. And then the second one is, what patterns are you aware of? Because you may have had previous relationships, or you may have relationships with your kids that aren't as good as you want them to be, and things keep coming up, the same old things keep coming up. So if you can find out and notice in yourself what they are, it's quite interesting to note that down. And then what are the hard places? Where are the difficulties? In other words, where do you get stuck? Where do you come into conflict with other people? And write those down. What needs are we looking for to be met in the relationships? Because sometimes we get We get, attention, we get affection, and sometimes we don't get our needs met, which are more conversation, more understanding, more validation. Whatever it is, you write those down in the boxes. And then a really interesting one at the end is how would the other person describe you? So it'd be quite interesting to write down how a parent, a partner, a colleague even would describe you, to try and look at how they see you from the outside, so you can get a bigger and wider understanding of yourself. I think this exercise is really interesting, really useful, because you just learn to see yourself from the outside again, which CBT is all about looking at ourselves, looking at what's going on in our minds. So it's good to zoom out. CBT is all about zooming out, looking at the bigger picture. And this is a real big picture exercise. So have a go at that if you want to. And we're gonna take that away now, that slide. And I was just going to talk about a few things that I've learned over the years about relationships. And one of the major things that I've learned is that really listening to someone and being there with them when you're with them is huge. It's really important. It may sound really simple, but we can't overstate the importance of our presence in a relationship, since we can't really truly relate to someone who's not there. Somebody said to me once, sometimes my partner, he's always traveling for work, but then when he's home, he doesn't really listen to me. He's off, watching TV, checking his phone, thinking about work. His mind is elsewhere. And that's quite a common problem that people experience in relationships. When they see the person or when they're with the person after they've been at work all day, they aren't there. Or when you phone someone up you haven't spoken for a while, you're trying to get your point across, trying to tell them all your news, and you're not really there listening to them. So what I'd like you to do is, the next time your partner or your child or a parent or a colleague talks to you about something, bring your full attention to what they're saying. Practice seeing the other person as though you were seeing them for the first time. Really focus on them and what they're saying. A poem that I love, which Becca's now going to put up for us. Here we go. This second one is by a lady called Rachel Carson. She's a really famous environmentalist. She's died now. She wrote this in the 60s. And it's a really brilliant poem. And it says, one way to open your eyes is to ask yourself, what if I had never seen this before? What if I knew I would never see this again? I used to use this all the time. I love Rachel Carson. When I'd go out walking in nature, and I would just really be aware that if I never saw that buttercup again, or I never saw that tree at that time of year, and so it made me really more present with it. And so I'm asking you to do the same thing with the people in your lives. Okay? What if you never see these people again? Or they'll never see them in the same way. Children grow and they leave. Older people get older, and sometimes they experience dementia or they forget. Everyone changes all the time, so it's really important if you can, just to keep that in the back of your mind. What if I never see this again? What if I never get this chance to connect with this person again? And it really makes you feel really present with them. Another great skill to learn in relationships, if Becca wants to take that away now, is validation. And this means, I don't know if some of you probably know already, but validation means that you're making sure that other people know that they've been understood and heard while they're sharing their story and their point of view. So it's that whole idea of saying, yeah, I understand, I get it, I hear you, while you're listening to somebody. It's we want them to know that we feel sympathetic to their point of view, even though we don't always agree with their point of view. We just want them to know that they're being heard. Even sometimes we disagree with what other people are saying, but we can say stuff like, I can see why you would feel like that. Or you could focus on their feelings. So when they're talking, you can pick up on the feelings that they're saying rather than the story. If you think, oh, they're talking about their own particular stuff, you can say stuff like, I can see how that was really frustrating for you. I can see how that did make you feel upset. You haven't got to agree with all the content of their story. You can validate their emotions, you can validate their feelings. just so that they feel heard and they feel held. And it's a really lovely thing to do with other people. And it's a really good basis on which to base relationships. Another really great one is trying to see the other person's point of view and putting ourselves in other people's shoes and trying to understand why they think or feel or act the way they do. And it's a real key element to making the most of our relationships. Unless we make a conscious effort to try and understand things from another person's point of view, our natural tendency is to find negative explanations for other people's behaviour. But if we put ourselves in their shoes, sometimes we can understand it and see it from their perspective. A lot of what we experience in relationships is a result of what we carry around in our own heads. And it's not about what is going on in the relationship. We're all bringing our own thinking to the relationship. So I would say keep using any CBT techniques that you've found useful, maybe watching the broadcasts, maybe in Silver Cloud or in other places, and keep using these techniques. So you know what you need in a relationship. You know, if you've done the exercise that I suggest you try before, when you've listed all the major relationships and you look at what you need from them and what you give, then you get a much clearer idea of who you are and who you are in a relationship. And you can start looking at, you know, what's going through your own mind and what stuff you're bringing to the relationship. And then your communication with your partner and family may improve because you're not always blaming them for the situation. You're realizing, oh, okay, that's something I brought home with me from work today, or I had a bad experience in the shop and I've brought that home. I'm still in a bad mood. It's the stuff that's in your own mind. Our own emotions can interfere with our ability to really hear someone else's point of view. And when we're sad or when we're stressed, we can't see much beyond our own point of view, to be honest, and we can't sympathise as easily with other people. Emotion colours how we interpret other people's words. So sometimes somebody's saying something neutral, but we feel it like an attack if we're feeling emotionally unavailable. Sometimes as well, we can't. You know, it's best to tell other people. It's a really good idea in relationships to communicate how you feel as best you can. So if you want to take yourselves through the Silver Cloud program on communication and relationships, I really recommend that. It has loads of great, interesting techniques and tools that you can try and use. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about a few other techniques you can try in relationships next week. But in the meantime, if you want to try that exercise, and if you want to remember Rachel Carson's words, you know, what if I never saw this again? What if I never experienced this again? Then it'll just take the edge off any angst that you bring into the relationship, and it'll just make you more present and really listen to what the other person's saying. Okay, well, I hope that's been helpful, and I'll see you again next time for more relationship information. Thank you. Bye.